Alright everybody, today we're going to be talking about Mythic Star Augur and how to do that as a Disc Priest. So the first thing I would like to point out is that this fight pretty much completely depends on how much DPS you do and what strategy you do. So in this we are 3 healing it and we are 1 tanking it, so we have essentially 2 extra DPS and we do have some pretty high DPS. So we do skip a lot of the AoE healing that happens in the last phase, but with a barrier and a Devo you don't actually need too much throughput. So when I come talking about the talents, keep this in mind because it is fairly important. So with the talents, there is one pretty distinct thing that I'm doing in this encounter that you probably don't see a lot of Disc Priests doing. That's taking Twist of Fate and Mindbender and Grace. So I'm taking these 3 talents all because of the burst healing that occurs at certain periods of the fight. So on the icy, there's a big icy ejection wave that comes out. You'll see me using my Mindbender there. There's also a big during the fell ejections. I use my Mindbender because it's, you know, there's a lot of healing while I'm not on the target. And you know, Grace provides you with more single target healing, and Contrition really does not get much value in this fight because the AoE, there is no AoE damage going out. There's only going to be these ejections which happen on target for 8 seconds. So once you play your atonement, you're essentially done with that target. So there is no real need to have 18-second atonements. So this is why I choose all my talents, and I do believe this is the correct choice to choose for your talents in 7.2, just because of how quickly this boss will actually die. So you can see here for the first big wave of icy ejections, I was popping my Mindbender, my Velens, and just my Rapture, and making sure I get powered shields out on everybody, and putting in some penance with the Velens, which does a lot of spot healing. You'll see my healing jump up there. And you'll see we transition the boss very quickly. So this first phase we're only getting one big overlap of icy ejections, and we're essentially using all our raid cooldowns for that icy ejection just so nobody dies. Then we're coming into the fell ejection. I'm second potting here as well just to pump out some damage, just because I don't really need to. There isn't actually that much healing going out. I believe I was doing about 600k HPS through this phase, which is not too much. And you'll see me just holding my cooldowns for those periods. So I believe here that I'm going to be using my Mindbender once the, I think, 9 ejections come out. So I should be atomenting every single person that gets the ejection, and then I'll just chuck my Mindbender out. And there you go, lots of healing coming out there, and you'll just see my healing kind of shooting up. So that's all you really need to be worried about in this fight, is just making sure that you're applying atonement onto people who have the fell ejection. Is really important that you prioritize people with the fell ejection and not people who are already low HP. You're not really too concerned about topping people on low HP, you're just concerned about topping people with the fell ejection so they don't die. That is actually a big thing as well for the icy ejections. Make sure you're only healing people who have the debuff and not people who are low HP, because the only people taking damage are going to be people with the debuff. That will, you know, ensure you a lot of success for this fight. You can see the Grand Conjunction there, using my great utility of my grip to, you know, make sure that we don't get any fell stacks. And then we're going to be pushing the boss in the last phase. So the whole goal with our strategy is to have enough DPS to push the fell phase before the second fell nova, so we don't have to deal with any shitty overlaps. We start on the door side with the fell, then we move to the opposite side of the room just so nobody ever gets any stacks. This is why you see there's very little raid damage going out here. And then we're going into the last phase to, you know, nuke the boss down. So there's going to be one ad spawning that we do nuke the boss through. But essentially in this last phase, we did have a very high amount of DPS in this pool just because of RNG really. So we didn't actually get to the third set of ads, but the second set of ads on the second explosion. But what we were doing is saving Devo and Barrier for when the eye comes out. You won't see that in this kill, but that is why I still have my cooldowns up, because in our previous attempts we weren't this quick on killing the boss. And essentially we're just going to be ramping up for these Witness of the Voids and using our Velens. So I believe on the next the Witness of the Void, I'll be using my Velens and my Mindbender and doing out a huge amount of burst healing just to top the raid off really quickly, because we do not have any damage reduction for this one. Or not. Again, this was kind of a really sloppy kill on my behalf, just because our kill time was so quick. In our previous attempts, You know, my Mindbender cooldowns were on for different points. We even pushed the boss before I got to use my Mindbender in the second Fel phase. I used my Mindbender for the next set of ejections in the Fel phase, but again, just because our DPS was so high, that didn't happen. So that's why you see my Mindbender just staying, you know, off cooldown, because I was using it in previous attempts, but we just phase changed it so quickly that I wasn't using it at that point, so it doesn't cooldown. So I didn't actually I just held it until that period happened. So you'll see here on this, I believe in this first Witness of the Void, I do the throughput healing, and then on the next one I plan to use my barrier, but as you can see the boss is about to die, so it shouldn't really be a problem. So chuck my Mindbender and Velens out here, just to spot heal everybody, and you can see how much healing that does. And the boss should be shortly dead. So again, the important part about really Star Ogre is just making sure that you you're playing as a healer to what you should be doing. So, you know, for our kill, for our speed on this kill, the real only damage coming in was the single target damage in the first and second phases. So I made sure to equip myself for raw single target healing. So Grace, Twist of Fate, and Mindbender. That is something you will not see a lot of Disc Priests doing, whether that's because they just are not aware that they have those talents, or that they're not gearing themselves properly towards the fight. But I found a lot of success with that. It was actually a lot easier to heal as Disc than it was Holy. I did play Holy for pretty much, I mean, our first night of progression on the boss, I was playing Holy for it. It was working fine, and again, I was taking all the single target healing talents for Holy. And that was working pretty well, but as soon as I got Velens, Disc just became significantly stronger for that fight, so that's why I played Disc. Anyway, well, I hope you learned something. Just the important parts to take away from this, though, is that when you are healing this fight, it is very important to be healing people with the debuffs and not people who are low HP. Do not pad your healing on people who are low HP, because they're not the people who are going to be dying. The people who are going to be dying are the people with the fresh Fel ejections, the fresh Icy ejections in the first and second phase. Alright, and well, thanks for watching, and enjoy.